All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. It is Tuesday, November 13th, and we've hit the final home stretch for the class for the month here in week 4. So by now, you have been working on your Wise setup of 2D platformer and Angry Bots, and you are either were successful in getting it all set up last week, or you're making some final finishing touches to it. Often, once you get everything working in the game, there is reveals some issues with the audio and maybe the mix overall, or the setup of the sound effects. So there might be some changes that need to happen with the composition or the sound design. So, this week is all about wrapping everything up for the month and making sure that your first off that your games are working with both music and sound effects. You should have 2D platformer and Angry Bots functioning at this point. Then you this week you will create a video capture of your music and sound effects working in the game. So you will be using QuickTime and a program called Loopback to capture the video and audio of your screen and your computer to capture a version of 2D platformer and Angry Bots as a video, so that you will have kind of it'll have a much longer life overall, where the game can have all sorts of reasons. The game application itself can have all sorts of reasons going on in the days, months, and years beyond the class where it might cease to work. But a video and a YouTube link is probably going to be around for quite a while. Basically, I have Pro Tool sessions and Logic sessions and old versions of games that don't function anymore because software has changed and the operating system has changed. But videos and kind of the final version of the project often last for much, much longer. So the real purpose of the week is to take all of the work that you've done on these projects, all of the knowledge that you've gained, and put it into a final format so that you can show off the projects that you've worked on, and ultimately your composition and your sound design work. So our projects this week will focus to that end. Our discussion and topics will be talking about how to get started in the industry. Hopefully the class piques your interest in this side of the entertainment industry, and we want to give you the tools and resources as you move forward beyond the class. So if you do have any questions pertaining to Wise, or your music, or the compositions, or the sound design, or any other aspects, now's the time to reach out and let me know. We want to get all that stuff wrapped up by the end of the month so you can move on to your final month smoothly. All right, so like all of our other Tuesdays so far, we are going to start out with a bit of peer review. Your composition last week was a chiptune composition utilizing the restrictions and limitations of the original Nintendo system. So we have a couple of different submissions. What do I have here? We have 6 different submissions to take a listen to. This composition was not interactive. It was linear. It had a beginning, a middle, and an end. It was to be 1 minute to 2 minutes long. It didn't need to loop or anything like that. So it might be a little bit more freeing to that extent, but we wanted to definitely have a composition in week 3, and so the final submission here is an MP3 that we'll listen to, along with a screenshot that we'll take a look at while we are listening. And the focus of this assignment was to give you a sense of composition all the way back in the sort of early dawn of game audio, while we are learning Wwise and taking your music and putting it into a game and talking about where game audio technology is in 2018, we want to give you a sense of how far it's come by throwing you all the way back to the limitations and restrictions of the original Nintendo system. So you were given a Logic session that had a series of EXS-24 samplers with sound banks that contained samples of waveforms from the original Nintendo and the Famicom system, which was the Japanese release of the NES. And the composition followed certain restrictions. Number one, you could only use 4 voices simultaneously. You could have an unlimited number of tracks, but at any one point you are only using 4 voices, 4 tracks, 4 instruments, 4 sounds. You were limited to the sound set that was provided with these limited palette of sounds. You have to have a melody. You have to have drums or percussion. What you do with the other 2 channels at any one time is up to you, whether it's a combination of drums, bass, harmony, melody, drums, bass, melody, counter melody, drums, bass, or drums, harmony, harmony, melody, or drums, 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 melody, or just any combination of all of that. There were certain techniques that were characteristic of these compositions, utilizing kind of faster, more staccato phrasing overall, because the sound set was so limited that if you kind of hang on a sound too long, it can typically kind of start sounding sterile or boring. Some people love this kind of composition because it throws them back into a nostalgic period. It does take away a lot of the production and the choices. Like takes away the production and gets directly into the composition. So the sounds are so fundamental or basic that you really do focus on melody and harmony very well, because these simple waveforms create nice thick harmonies and melodies, and can sort of bring about this feeling of this era of music. Some people don't particularly like the assignment because it takes away all of their tools. Some people love it. Some people hate it because all of a sudden you have taken away all of their fun tricks and tools and techniques that they're used to in an unlimited set of sounds and restrictions. So, but I do end up getting a good, solid batch of really good compositions from this, because it does take away the production and focuses heavily on the compositional aspects of it. So we're going to go ahead and listen to each one of these one at a time. I'll bring up the screenshots so that we can kind of follow along, see what's happening in the background. I often like to think about what game I might be playing when listening to these. So if you have any, if it brings about any sort of thought about what type of game it is, a racing game or a puzzle game or a fighting game or whatever it is, we'll have to also like to hit on that point. But yeah, we'll take a listen to these and see what we have. So let's see. Let's start out with, I'll open the first one here. And screenshot. Maybe? Oh, there it goes. Get this down to a manageable place. There we go. All right. I think I have it. Let's go ahead and give it a try. I like that last chord. Strong harmonic progression in there, strong harmonic changes. I like the melodic direction it parts overall. So we have this kind of building, or this kind of intro. A little bit of percussion comes in, and the full feel comes in starting about here. So a good groove, kind of very melodic and almost narrative, kind of telling you a little bit of a story as it's going on, with the changes all the way through. I think as I'm listening to this, I really feel like this is like a backstory era, like element, or it isn't it feels like a flashback to a happier time. It definitely has a positive feel. It's not battle. Maybe it's even for like a game, like just a puzzle game or a card game or something like that. So I like the melodic lines through this section here, and I definitely like the last chord that's hit. Excellent. So, one thing that I think it does well with the melodic changes overall is kind of lead the listener through a series of scenes or emotions. And I think this works very well for this type of composition because in a demo form like it is, it should kind of tell the listener, or probably what's going to be a future client or somebody, and tell them or lead them through all of the different emotional states and different game states that can happen. So you could have something where might be an intro theme, and then it leads into something that represents stealth. Then then another section that represents being in danger. Another part that represents action. Maybe something that represents winning or losing, and it's still different themes on the same idea, same instrumentation, same overall feel, but it leads the player and says, I can take a central idea and kind of push it through all of these different emotional qualities. So thinking about it like that, and less as a song form, can definitely help for kind of formatting this towards the game industry overall. Right. Good start. Let's bring up the screenshot, and then we'll get started here. Nice. A great kind of thematic lead line. It works especially trying to listen and see if it's kind of doubled up or if that's just the sound. I guess we got a couple of layers here. of kind of this parallel movement between the different lines. So I think it works very well. I would definitely feel much more of an action feel to it. One of the first things that I kind of heard when it first started was like somebody going, "Fight! Get ready, go!" And then and then it takes off in the pacing. The only thing I might add is a snare in there, just on 2 and 4, kind of help that move that pacing forward. The 16-note bass in there works very nicely. I don't know. I can't particularly tell. It does sound doubled in some way. I don't know if that's the sound itself or because the rest of these layers don't seem to be doing the same thing that the lead does. So I think it fits very well in kind of its minor tonality and fits to kind of a sort of action theme overall. So nice work. I think it hits the mark. Do another one here. All right, let me try that again. All right, so a great pace to it, a great kind of intense pacing overall. I think that a strong bass line, strong drum pattern. I would like to hear some more change over the course of it. Could probably have the drums break down at some point. Have the bits. A lot of it is that the steady, consistent bass line that goes all the way through. The melody works. But it could change a little bit more. It does seem like the phrasing is quite similar. I think that if you could probably leave the melody quite where it is and move the melody and harmony. No, sorry, move the harmony and rhythm and create more changes in there to build some of those emotional ups and downs that I was talking about earlier. Although this would work very well as a action loop where it definitely sounds like it's set up to loop and it is consistent all the way across. I mean, it does have some changes, but the intensity and that pacing is consistent all the way across. So as a loop that would be meant for an action part of a game, I think it works. But as a demo that kind of needs to have that rise and fall and explain the different sections or progression of a game, you kind of need to build those changes in there. So definitely the right idea, and it depends on kind of which direction you want to go with it. Right. See if I can get this screenshot wrangled a little easier this time. All right. Turn the volume down. Come on. Oh. Don't slow down too much. This. Oh no. Turn it down. Well, computer seems to not want to. Uh-oh. No beach ball. There we go. Let's give it a try. So, a good progression, a good melodic line. I would say creating some more changes would probably be best to kind of move away from the kind of consistent, steady nature all the way through, although it does take a little change through this area. With just dropping down to the kick. There are some of the notes in there that are rhythmically out of time and could kind of be tightened up overall. Yeah, creating those changes where, I mean, you have some instrumentation changes, but having stronger melodic changes where either the harmonic progression goes in a new direction, or you don't really have chords here, but the kind of phrasing that you're outlining moves in a new direction. You could go to this kind of double time feel overall, or half time. Well, probably not half time from here, but a double time feel would kind of pick up the pace. Again, it does feel very happy and uplifting. This feels like a flying game, or like a balloon game or something like that, or I'm in a little plane that's flying around. Another thing that I heard was the second line, which I guess would be this tri-alto one. Let's see. Just drums, and we got this synth and the bass, but yeah, this synth is quite loud in the mix. Frequency-wise, it sticks out quite a bit, especially when it goes into a higher frequency, so I would watch out for that. So again, yeah, create those changes more in the composition rather than combinations of tracks. Create a change in the progression, create changes in the rhythm. I think what you're doing melodically works. I think it just, the elements underneath could create stronger changes. All right. Very good. Take a listen here. This down and add this. Cool. All right. I think I was just considering that a couple of these sound like they're all from like different levels of the same game. I could see going through this. Or this one. Right? That'd be like level 3, and then I got to level 5, and now I get to this one. Oops. What was the other one that was kind of like that? No, not that one. It was the first one. Yeah, it was just kind of in a major key and happy and not doesn't have that kind of danger to it overall. So it feels like this one almost feels like there's a great game out there, Stardew Valley, that is all about planting and cultivating your own farm and whatnot. And this makes me think like I'm doing an activity, and like there's the kick and snare gives a little bit of pace overall, but I have to do enough of something or collect enough of something to go to the next level. I would say melodically works well, the progression works well. There's some changes. I would maybe go for more thematic changes, as I've mentioned on earlier ones, of taking it to what, like, if it were to be something that was like resources and a building, like what would time running out sound like, and what would winning or losing or getting a power up or like a level up or something sound like, just so that you can throw those little changes and bits of ear candy in there. All right. But I definitely think that we could combine a couple of these into a fun little puzzle game. Two screenshots here. All right, let's give this a try. Excellent. Another strong major kind of feel to it. I like the use of arpeggiators, or I'm going to at least assume that that's an arpeggiator instead of you maybe placing every single one of those notes. So I did think in the very beginning here that it did sound kind of sparse between maybe that bass is just a little too low. Maybe could have something an octave up that could double it up, or maybe alternating back and forth, because when the bass and the drum is not playing, and only the melody is playing, it does feel kind of sparse. Here you get some later on you get some another melodic instrument, another harmonic instrument in there, and you start playing chords, and it does fill out more nicely, more completely. Yeah, I see arpeggiator here. I like that little major turn in there. Then I love the portamento slides. Definitely gives a strong change, goes in a new direction. I don't know, for some reason this feels like at night for me. I don't know if it's just the tone of the instrumentation. Maybe I'm creeping through a temple or a haunted house or something like that. I don't know. It doesn't sound like that dark or dangerous overall. Almost like, I don't know, maybe it's a casino game or something like that. Or maybe a racing game or something. There's another screenshot out from the mixer. All right, so a good mixture overall. I would definitely say one thing that I noticed that did stand out was the melodic changes and the harmonic changes. Although I did recommend like larger thematic, like maybe farther compositional jumps into new thematic ideas. But for staying on an idea and developing a melodic theme and having some nice harmonic chord progressions and changes, I definitely really feel that one positive element to this type of composition is it does take away all the infinite amount of presets and gets directly down to the music. And you can't focus too much on this amazing preset sound out of some modern synth. You get down to these very, very basic waveforms, and it really kind of nails the harmonic and melodic side of things and that direction overall. So one thing I often suggest with this type of composition is to, number one is to create it as a demo to show off the changes that you can create with the sort of limitations that you have. Create a strong melodic theme that represents, as mentioned, the beginning of the story, maybe like introduction of the hero, stealth, danger, loss, winning, power up, level up, or I don't know, all of these classic thematic game ideas, and create a theme using all of these restrictions, or take the compositions that you already have, and then at some point, halfway through, or at some point, take away the restrictions and go to a fully realized composition, so that you have no restrictions in the instrumentation, no restrictions in the number of tracks. You go from something that has 4 voices of very simple waveforms to, I don't know, however, 100 voices, 100 tracks of sample libraries and synths and modern production techniques and go into the full gambit of tools in your toolbox. That way, the idea is to say, I can take a musical theme, and if I had all the restrictions in the world, if we were thrown back to the limitations of the first round of game audio that is most represented by the Nintendo, the NES system, we've heard take away all of the tools and go back to these restrictions, here's a strong melodic theme that can be created. And also that I can take that, if there are no restrictions, here it is fully realized in the rest of the composition. So it's just another way to think about and kind of take a new direction for this type of composition. All right, so we had a good series of submissions to take a listen to. We're going to now switch it over to a discussion of the last round, or the last week's round of assignments. Please let me know if you have any questions. Again, if you have any issues with WISE, any issues with the remaining assignments, please let me know. We can wrap it up throughout this week. Other than that, I will be available on Thursday. We'll have our last open session, and we'll wrap the month up after that. Thank you very much, and I'll see you on Thursday. All right, so we have our submissions there. Like I said, the focus of this week is, your final week is to take the information and the projects that you've worked on and put them in the best light to show them off beyond the class and beyond your time at Full Sail, and be able to show the work off that you've done and completed, hopefully to future employers and future clients and whatnot. So as you have been progressing through all of your classes, you certainly should be gathering together as much of your classwork and materials and projects that you've been working on and put it together into a strong demo reel to show that off. And that includes these game projects. They are well and good as grades and as projects for a class, but their real intention is to give you a vehicle to show off your music and to show off your work and be able to demonstrate that off out there as you get started in the industry. So we are going to talk about the best way of showing off your music that is intended to play back in the game is to actually have somebody play the game. The best way of demonstrating your music for a game is to actually demo that game. So you have the game projects, you have the game applications, and you can distribute those as you wish. They are yours. They are free for you, free for educational purposes, free for demo purposes. The only thing is you just you would indicate that you did all of the music and sound, but you don't claim that you created the game. But they are for you to put on a website, put it in Dropbox, and send it around to future clients or future employers, and to show off your work. However, there are some limitations, mostly like technical limitations, with demonstrating your game. The first one is it's a Mac game, and so whoever wants to play the game needs to have a Mac computer in order to play it. The games can be put in or made as PC games, but that takes a lot of extra understanding and programming to convert the projects. I mean, it is possible, but mostly you have a Mac application. And so somebody has to have a Mac, and maybe whoever you're sending this off to has a computer and they can check it out. They have to have a computer powerful enough to play the games. That isn't as much of an issue as it used to be, as people's computers have progressively gotten better over the years, and have started with better computers, we really don't have much of an issue running these projects. So then you have another issue of very smart people on the internet won't probably just download some random application and run it on their computer. You would be very smart not to just download random zip files and open them up and play them on your computer. Now, of course, that's not the case with these applications, and they aren't. I mean, there's nothing wrong with them, but just a random link on a website, you're not going to get tons of people just saying, "Okay, sure, I'm just going to download this unknown application and run it." So you need to have some way of showing off your work. You need to have some way of people being able to see your music working in a game. You could just take like one of your main loop files and put it up on SoundCloud and say, "Hey, here's a loop that I wrote for a game, and I promise it works in the game." So the best way of showing off your music working in the game is actually having the game to show off. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a video capture of you playing the game with your music and sound effects working. So by this point in the month, you have composed the music for both of these projects, created all the sound effects. We had an opportunity for peer review, and you also got feedback for your submission. You have the opportunity to do any revisions or changes to that composition or those sound effects. Last week you used Wwise and used an audio middleware tool to connect your music and your sound effects working in the game. You got it working in the game. You tested it out. You played the game and you listened to your sound effects and your music, and more than likely found some issues with it. I mean, I guess you could knock it out of the park the first time every single time, but most of the time you get it in the game and there's yeah, I don't know, 75, 80% of it's all right, but there's another 20% there that I need to tweak and to change. So you go back to your sounds and you tweak your sounds a little bit. You go back to your music and you mix your files and you bounce everything out again. And you test it, put it back in the game, test it out. And that is a very constant kind of revision or iteration cycle where you compose something, you say, I think this is going to work. You put it in the game, go, man, that kind of works, but I need to do this. Then you go back and you fix it, you put it back in the game, you test it out, and you go around and around. So once you get everything set up in the game, then now you're ready to do this final video capture. It basically proves the process that you have created all the music and sound effects, put it in the game, tested it out, and have something to show for it. So you will be using QuickTime and a program called Loopback in order to capture the video on the screen or the game on the screen. All right, so let me talk about how you will set this up and how this will actually work. So actually I can just do this real quick. When you go on FSO, here's week 4. Here's your final game captures assignment. Notice that it is 0 weighted. That doesn't mean that you don't have to do it. It's just not turned in here. You are going to turn it down here in the final project delivery. So don't just ignore the assignment because it is 0 weighted. But it provides you with all the material. It says you will submit this YouTube link in a separate assignment on FSO. Final game capture. So you'll get a PDF here, and you'll get a PDF here. And the first one just gives you mostly just an overview and delivery instructions. Just kind of a real quick summary of how it all works and how to deliver everything here. But there's a separate PDF that goes slide by slide and goes into a lot more detail. So let me just take a look at this here. You will use QuickTime, which is already installed on your computer, and a program called Loopback in order to capture audio inside of your computer. Loopback is a free application. You can just go to the link here. Well, it's not a free application. It costs $99, but you don't need the $99 version. I don't know, unless you completely love the application and you want to support these people, but really you just need the free download for our purposes. The limitation with the free download is that it lasts for 15 minutes. And you only need to record for a minute or two. So if for some reason the 15 minutes runs out, then you just shut down the program and open it back up and you got another 15 minutes. But after a while, it starts blasting white noise at you. So make sure if you hear that, that's what's going on there. So you just download the Loopback, and what it is it is a virtual audio cable application for your computer. Meaning, you are going to record the video using QuickTime. You've probably used QuickTime at some point. This is actually QuickTime down here for all my videos. QuickTime is just capture the video from your webcam, or actually in this instance, it's going to capture the actual screen. But QuickTime doesn't allow you to do audio from inside of your computer. Actually, here's a better view of it. This is what it looks like when you open up and do the screen recording. And when you hit this down arrow, it doesn't allow you to record from inside of your own computer because of all sorts of nefarious copyright reasons. They don't want you recording everything that's ever been played through your entire computer. But for our purposes, it's your music. You want to record it, so you need to have a way of actually doing that. That's where Loopback comes in. And when you download Loopback and you run it, it looks like this. Here. And it says, hey, click here to create a new virtual device. And when you create a new virtual device, it's actually creating like an audio interface inside of your computer. Just like you take a cable and you go cable out of a guitar into an amp, or just a cable out of one thing into another. This takes a cable, a virtual cable, and goes out of your game into QuickTime. If I look at my audio MIDI setup now, it actually adds an extra interface to run everything through. And when you do that and you go back to QuickTime, oh my goodness, hello computer, there it goes. When you come back here and look in here, you should now have a Loopback audio interface. Once you do all of that, the other thing you need to do is come in here and you need to tell it to actually what application do you want to record. And you want it to point to 2D Platformer or Angry Bots, whichever one you're recording. Right here. And when you do that, it shows up here. You will be able to, I don't want to do this right now, but you want to be able to listen through your speakers. You uncheck the mute audio sources so that you can hear everything. And then you go run the game, and you should be able to meter it. Once you play the game, you should see some meters here inside of the screen recording, and you know at that point that it's working. When you get this set up, you might hear it doubled up, like it might monitor back twice. Depends on how you have your audio set up, but it either can be this, it could be monitoring through QuickTime, which could be this fader. It could be this setting, monitor through audio through whatever your output is. So double check those just to make sure. The other thing is, if you hear it doubled, it doesn't actually capture doubled. So you can just hit record anyway. You'll monitor it doubled, and then you'll listen. The video will be fine. So just a couple of pointers there. So you'll install Loopback. You'll set up for the screen recording. Like I said, you'll create a new virtual device. You'll select the game application that you want to run. You check the checkboxes. You open up QuickTime. You set up a new screen recording. I showed you this where you click the little arrow and you want to set up to Loopback so that you can record inside of QuickTime. At that point, you should see meters. And you can hit record. Depends on if you have like 2 screens set up. If you're just recording on your one screen, you can either click and drag just a portion of your screen if it's in a window, or you can just click and it will record the entire screen. Depends on how you have it set up. The only thing to watch out for is most of everybody's computers now have Retina displays, and that's like a really super high resolution. And if you do the entire full screen, it might just slow everything down trying to capture all that stuff. It just might be something to watch out for. I got a couple more slides on that. So the best thing to do is run it in a window and just kind of highlight over the window so that it only captures. You don't capture all of your messy desktop and all this extra stuff. You just capture exactly what you want. So it starts the screen capture. You can run like I said, you can run it in a window. If you click this little checkbox, it says it's in a window. If you unclick this checkbox, it says it's not in a window. More than likely, you've played the game up to this point. You probably know how best it is to run. You've probably already set all this stuff, if you even had to mess with it at all. So more than likely, it's just fine. But if things start acting screwy while trying to do the recording, some of these settings can help. So you hit record when you're ready to go, and you start recording and demonstrating the game. The actual content of the video, I leave that very much up to you. It's your demo video. It's what you want to show off and how you want to show it off. What I'm most concerned with, most focused on, is the process. The fact that you have the game, you have the music and sound effects working in the game. That's a huge portion of the project that you're now demonstrating. And you also have QuickTime and you've got Loopback or something installed. I guess I should also point out, if you already have and you use something like Soundflower or Audio Hijack, those things are identical to Loopback, or at least in our function, for what we need. And so you can use those pieces of software. As long as it doesn't watermark it or do anything weird with the video or audio. If you already have it set up in a certain way, you can use that. But once you've captured this video, you show that you have all of the sound effects and music working in the game, and you can do a video capture. You have the game playing back. You're using QuickTime and something like Loopback to capture the audio. And so if later on you have a different project or different sounds, you want to redo this one, you can always just create new video captures to show the work that you've done. Demonstrate all the music and sound design. The other thing to point out is I do not count every single sound effect, meaning that I don't like track that you have triggered every single sound effect in every piece of music, because I know that a lot of it, or some of it, is left up to chance. You can't always trigger every single music file because it's random. So you're going to get like 3 intros, 3 main loops, and only 2 of the endings will play within about 2 minutes long. We suggest that the videos be around 1 minute to 2 minutes long, which is right here. Oops. Right. Oh, there it is. Video capture should be no longer than 2 minutes. So again, the content is up to you. How you demonstrate it is up to you. I would suggest a big one is don't play the game like you're trying to win the game. Don't just do the video capture just to show off how good you are at playing the game. It's about showing off all of the sounds. One common thing that I'll see with, especially with 2D platformer, is I'll hear the intro and then they'll start playing the game, and for like a minute or two I'll just see them play the game and they'll never die, or they'll just die once at the end and stop the video, and that means I only saw one intro and one ending. You created 4 other files and never showed anybody. So die a couple of times, jump off the edge, trigger some of those ending cues, try to trigger as many of the sound effects as possible, and just kind of, yeah, show it off in its best light overall. Then you stop the screen recording. You save the screen recording, name it your last name, your first name, GCP Week 4, 2D platformer, whatever or Angry Bots. Do not name it last name, first name. Your name isn't last name, first name. You have a last name, you have a first name. Please, it happens every month. Somebody at some point names something last name, first name. So just watch out for that. And then please, please, please check your screen recording. Watch the video after it's done. This happens, I mean, most people do this, no problem, but for some reason, I will always, every month, I'll get a series of videos that either the audio is just missing or they used the internal microphone on their computer. It played out of their computer speakers and then back into the internal microphone. And if it didn't feed back, then it sounds horrible. It just sounds really thin, and you hear them in the background, like breathing and clicking on their keyboard, and it's really kind of weird. And you hear their dog barking in the background and their family running around or whatever it is. So just watch out for that. Double check the video. Make sure it has the correct content of it. It has the correct thing that you captured. The other thing is don't hit record and record it for 2 minutes the first time, because there's no telling if you got it right the first time. So just hit record for a few seconds, and then stop it and check the recording and make sure you're actually capturing the thing you think you're recording. So that so you don't have to do it over and over again and waste any time. A couple optional tips. Clear off the desktop. If you are capturing any aspect of the desktop, it's probably best to just make it as clear as possible. I know a lot of folks, we have audio directors and people in different game teams come and talk to our Full Sail student, or come talk to our students, and they'll say often, if we see screenshots or things and it just looks like you have a messy desktop and you posted up a video and it just looks like things are all over the place, it's not probably going to help your cause overall, because a lot of people don't want to work with that. So you can either do a full screen or a high resolution recording. You can do a low resolution recording. If more than likely the video capture is just going to work just fine. Every once in a while, depending on people's computers and whatever they're running or how they have it set up, this might start making your computer chug a little bit, because you got to play the game and do a video capture at the same time. If that is the case, then as long as the audio doesn't stutter or doesn't drop out, if the video kind of gets slow or choppy, that's fine. For the purposes of the video, for the grade and for the assignment, that's fine. Obviously, you want to make as a high quality video as possible. I wouldn't really even consider just focusing on the fact that it's an assignment. Create a proper and a demo video that you can use beyond the class. So if need be, try shrinking down the resolution of the game. Maybe even try shrinking down the resolution of your monitor and your screen. That might help create smoother videos overall. Once you have done the video for both Angry Bots and 2D Platformer, you're going to post them up on YouTube. Just to put them up there, you can put it just so that I can view it. You don't have to make it completely public, but don't make it private. Make sure that you post it up and you can share the link and have everybody reference it. So the assignment of the video capture is really getting everything set up. Once it's working, then it's just playing the game and just showing off how your music and sound effects sound in the game. All right, so that is your final video capture. and to then show it off, or then to kind of deliver the final version of everything back here on FSO. The kind of big assignment for this week is your final project delivery. And this is going to be basically, it's a 10-question test, but it's not like a test that you study for because you have all the answers. It's just really a summary of your composition. So it's broken down into two halves. 5 of the questions are for 2D platformer, 5 of the questions for Angry Bots. They're very similar to each other. The first one is 2D platformer video capture. Provide the YouTube link to your 2D platformer game capture video. So you just did the video capture, you uploaded it to YouTube. Now post the YouTube link here. Make sure that it works. You can always go into incognito mode to check links. That's how I do a lot of my stuff with YouTube and Google, since I have like a personal login for YouTube and Google, but whenever I want to do any Full Sail stuff, you just go into incognito mode and it forgets who you are, and then you can log in as whatever you want. So if you just double check all the links that you're going to send me, make sure that they work. You can use incognito mode to do that, or send them to somebody else, and then that's how I will be able to check it also. So give me a YouTube link. This is actually quite important. A missing YouTube link or a missing audio track in a video renders the submission ungradable. If I can't hear it, if I can't hear your music and your sound effects, or the video doesn't work, or the link doesn't work, I can't grade the rest of the assignment. So make sure the video is there and working. Then you'll send me a screenshot of your DAW session. You will, this is the 2D platformer instrumentation. List the instruments that you used in the intros, main loop, and ending cues. Name any synths or sample library sources for all the tracks. So you will tell me what instruments you used. Tell me in the intros, the main loops, and the endings, which synths, which drums. Don't just tell me I used a piano and I used a banjo and an organ and a synthesizer. Tell me which presets, which sample libraries, which synthesizers you used, which presets you used, so that the idea is if somebody else had to recreate this session, they knew what instruments. They could go load up those, assuming that they had the same instrumentation that you did. Somebody could kind of recreate all of this stuff if necessary. Next, 2D platformer transitions. You will take screenshots of your intros, your main loops, and your endings, and then line them up in a particular way. You are going to take your intro 1 and connect it to main loop 2, and then connect it to ending 3. And then take intro 2 and connect it to main loop 3, and then go to ending 1. And then take intro 3 and go to main loop 1, and go to ending 2. I guess I could just read it up here. Basically, it's taking all of your tracks and rearranging them into different orders, taking a screenshot of it, and then answering a few questions, like describe what you listen to each track. How does the music transition from one cue to the next? Describe what you hear. Does the intensity of the music build with the intro cue? Are the same instruments heard from the intros through the main loops and the endings? Are there any hiccups or pops as the music shifts from one music cue to the next? So these are just basic overview. How well did it work? Did it sound as you expected? Just kind of give me insight into the final product. Then you will create a screenshot of your final mix. Give me a peak level and an RMS level. Use the level meter plugin found in Logic, just so I can get an overview of your levels. Angry Bots section is very much very similar. Angrybots video capture. Provide the YouTube link for that. Give me a screenshot of your Angrybots session. And list the instrumentation used in your ambient, buzzer action, mech action, and spider action cues. Then you'll take your 4 files, line them all up together, ambient, buzzer action, mech action, spider action, and then basically comment the same way. How did it work? Listen to your cues playing back together. Describe what you hear. How well did the cues play back? Are there any noticeable issues? Do the cues start and end at the same time? Are there any rhythms that clash? Do the melodies or harmonies clash? Just to get an overview of how well the main portion of the composition worked. Give me a summary with a screenshot of your Angrybots mix. So really, it's just kind of like a post-mortem overview, summary, summation of how well everything worked in the final projects. So that is the direction we are headed in this last week. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to stick around here for a few minutes if you have any questions. But again, this is the last week. Let me know if you are having any challenges or anything that you need to discuss in the final part of the week. But we have one more class on Thursday. We can listen to or discuss any or anything that you need, or take a look at your final video. But other than that, let's end it there. Thank you very much, and I'll see you again on Thursday.